evening, good morning, good night, whatever the case may be. It's time for World History with your host with the most, the teacher that knows the most. It's me. It's the one and only Coach Hughes. Welcome into another fun-filled, exciting edition. Although there is no lecture today, we are going to be diving into the world of the 7 wonders of the ancient world / the Trojan Horse Project. Now, this is a fun little project that I came up with, well, really years, and I do mean years ago. It originally started out as just the Trojan Horse Project. And then, well, quite frankly, I got tired of just seeing Trojan horses after Trojan horses after Trojan horses. So I expanded the project to include the 7 wonders of the ancient world and the Trojan horse. And just for the record, yeah, I know the Trojan horse is not one of the ancient wonders of the world, but I started out with that and I'm going to stick with that. And I'm adding the 7 wonders of the ancient world. This is a fun little project that I've done really every year, minus the COVID year where everybody was kind of scattered and quarantined and having to do virtual lessons at home. But every other year, I pretty much managed to pull this project off. This project, just like this year, has always been assigned in the month of September, and it's not due until all the way in February of the next year. Now, this is a pretty involved project, and I'm going to kind of go over it step by step with you today. And one thing that you really need to know is you've got a lot of time to do this project in, and it's a pretty big project grade. It's a 1,600 point test grade. And you only have 6 months to work on it. So you should be well done with this project before the month of February rolls around. Now, going to talk about a couple of things here. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is, are you going to work with a partner? Are you going to work in a group of 3? Are you going to work in a group of 4? Or quite simply, are you going to work by yourself on this project? So there's some options for you as we start this project off. I'm going to highlight on the screen here a couple of things. Students will be working as individuals with a partner of their choosing or in groups of their choosing of no more than 4 to a group. Okay? So you have to decide pretty quick, within a week's time, are you going to work by yourself? If you don't like to take direction from other people, if your parents don't like for other students to come to their house or you go to their house, you probably want to work as an individual here. But I understand if you want to work with a partner. I understand if you want to work in a group of 3. I understand if you want to work in a group of 4. But there's some rules and some guidelines that we not kind of have to set up here if you go any of these routes. Okay. First of all, again, highlighting the stuff on your screen, each partnership or group, if you choose that, you will need to choose a group leader. That group leader will have more power than the other members of their group. So let's talk about that for just a second. If you get into a partnership, if you get into a group, you need, however you want to do it, select a group leader. And that group leader will have more power over all the other group members once you have selected that group member. Now, there's a couple of reasons we do it this way. One, this project's length is a long time, 6 months. I cannot answer every group or individual's issues for 6 months, especially the small, kind of minute details. So I don't want the group leader to have a big head. I want you to treat it as a democracy as much as you can. But in the end, it's kind of like a dictatorship in that you have the authority, you have the power to kind of veto the others if you choose to do so, since you're the group leader. And, if you have design issues, what the project should be built out of, scheduling conflicts, and even if you have to remove at kind of a last resort, a group member, you are going to have the authority to do that. Now, group leaders and, well, the individuals that are working by themselves will submit a weekly report on Fridays starting in November. And these reports are just documentation for me and you to make sure that you are progressing along the way to that February deadline. Because we don't want you to wait until the weekend before to do this. Quite frankly, you can't because it's just, well, too much stuff. I really don't want you to wait until January to get started. We need to get started kind of ASAP, as soon as possible. If you get done early, that's great, but we definitely don't want to get a late start and start the projects off on the wrong foots. I've had in the past parents email me upset that, well, I didn't give their child enough time to get this project done. And I think there was some miscommunication between child and parent, because usually when they find out that this was a 6 month project, usually when they find out that they've been submitting weekly reports, I have all that documentation for the parents. So there's really not any issues. I've had students kind of fib uh, to me and write out on their reports that, we got this done on our project, we're almost done with this. And then when I talk to the parents, or the parents email me out of concerns, I show them that documentation, and they know that, well, they haven't been truthful to me. So the documentation, the weekly reports, can be very, very short. It can as it highlighted on the screen, reports may be very brief on a sheet of paper signed by the individual or group leader. That's just so I have that documentation. Again, if a student is fibbing to me in the sense that they were telling me they were almost done, but they weren't, that parent can see that and take the proper things that they need to do at home. Now, if you're working in a group, if any one student does not work, I need to be notified as soon as possible, not at the end of the project, mainly because in the past, we have gone all the way to the month of February. Groups have presented their projects to me. And after everything is done and turned in, I've had students come up to me and say, "Hey, Coach Hughes, so and so didn't do anything on this project. And really, and this person did all the work. And we don't think it's fair that that person gets the same grade as us." All right. Well, if you wait until after all this is said and done, there's nothing really I can do about it. That person is going to get the same grade as you because you had 6 months to work and notify me. And quite frankly, you didn't. Now, there are some little checkpoints in this. I will allow you to get out of a group, switch a group, go from a group to individual in a couple of ways. So if you follow along here on the screen, no one may switch partnerships or groups or leave a partnership or group for any reason, really up until that Friday before Thanksgiving break. That's the 3 month mark. By then, you should know if you are not gelling well with a group. Group leaders, you should know by then if someone is not pulling his or her, excuse me, fair share of work. And then we need to make arrangements for people to leave groups, excuse me, or switch groups, or go from a group to individual work at that time. But after that Friday, before the Thanksgiving break, you have to notify me immediately if any of these things happen. Because after that deadline, after that Friday before Thanksgiving break, once we break for Thanksgiving, you cannot switch groups. You cannot leave a group to do the project by yourself. You are stuck in that group. So if you don't start working on this project early, you quite frankly may not know if someone is going to pull his or her fair share of the workload. Now, after a week after this first week, from the day that this project is assigned until the very next week, you're going to have to notify me if you're going to work as an individual, with a partner, in a group of 3, or in a group of 4. Okay, that's within a week after this project is initially assigned. Okay, now we can change groups, we can leave groups, we can go from a group to individual, we can go from individual to groups, all the way up to that Friday before we break for Thanksgiving. And after that, you're kind of stuck as to where you are. So that's kind of the deal up there on front with working as an individual, working with a partner, working in a group of 3, or working in a group of 4. And that is totally up to you. Now, when you decide if you're going to work in a group or a partnership, you can only work with people in your class. Part of this project is presentation, so we need to make sure everybody's in the same class. So you cannot work with anybody that may be in another class. You have to work with individuals, people in your class there. So with that being said, let's look at the project itself. Now, the term 7 wonders of the world means works regarded by the ancient Greeks and the Romans as some of the most remarkable structures of their day. So you are going to have the option of choosing which model you want to build from the 7 wonders of the ancient world, or the Trojan horse, which again was not one of the wonders, but added to this project. So here are the 7 wonders of the ancient world and the Trojan horse. So you could build a 3D model of the pyramids of Egypt. You could build the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. You could build a 3D model of the statue of Zeus. The Temple of Artemis is also a choice. The Mausoleum of Halicarnassus is a choice. One of my favorites, the Colossus of Rhodes. Also, another highly ranked favorite of mine, the Lighthouse of Alexandria. Those are the 7 wonders of the ancient world that you could choose to do your project on and build a 3D model of. Also, as an extra bonus, what I originally started this project out to be, you can also choose to build the Trojan horse. Now, we've got some examples of former students' work here of these, some good, some not so good. But we're going to save that for a little bit later. So let's look at a couple of things here. Your project should include the following. You must build your project from scratch. You cannot go buy dolls. You cannot buy action figures, Legos. You cannot use food. Uh, you can't buy already ready models to put together from Hobby Lobby or someplace like that. What must you turn in? You must turn in 5 things. The first thing is a working 3D model. So here are your choices again. But here's the term added. Your model has to be a working model. So again, the first option are the pyramids. Now, if you want to do a working 3D model of the pyramid, you're going to have to include a removable top or a removable side with a complete mummy's tomb inside. That would be the complete 3D model choice for that. If you choose to do the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, you would need a working pulley system that shows how water was pulled from the ground to the top, or running water in your 3D Hanging Garden of Babylon model. And this could be from like a fish tank pump that pumps water from the top to the bottom continuously. If you are going to go with the statue of Zeus, you have to build that statue of Zeus inside the temple of Zeus with a removable or retractable roof. The Temple of Artemis, not really anything you can do workable, but instead of workable, you're going to have detailed statues on the model instead of what we deemed a working model for the others. The mausoleum of Halicarnassus, also very hard to make a working 3D model here. So again, you'll have to go with detailed statues on the model instead of that working model like the Hanging Gardens with the running water, or the pyramids, the removable or retractable roof. The Colossus of Rhodes, one of my favorites. What you're going to have here is you're going to have to build that statue from scratch. No dolls, no action figures, or store-bought models. The legs must be stretched across the bay there that you build the setting in, and miniature boats floating in water, or not necessarily water, but as long as you have boats that are movable in some way, shape, or form between the legs there of the Colossus of Rhodes. The Lighthouse of Alexandria. If you build this 3D model, it needs to have a working light system. And finally, if you go with the Trojan horse here, you're going to have working wheels, working trap doors, a retractable ladder with army men inside, and enough that you can fit those men in here. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind here is when you're building these, you have to keep in mind that you have to transport these models that you build from your house to the school. Now, obviously, we don't want to build them too large to where they will not fit in the doors, but we also want to make sure that we are not building something that is not sound and not fully structured, because I've had models that completely break apart on their ride from home to the school. So you have to be careful in what you build these projects with, and we'll talk about building materials here just a little bit. I'm going to switch over to the rubric now. Now, this is, again, a 1,600 point test grade. Now, what I'm looking at here, the 3D model, there are 400 points possible for this. The first one is design. Does it look like the wonder, or does it look like the horse that you're attempting to build? In some cases, excuse me, in some cases in the past, the model itself has looked nowhere near what the model that students were attempting to build looks like. Neither did the Trojan horse. So when you are designing, when you are planning, you need to make sure that what you are creating is very, very similar, looks like the wonder or the horse itself. Sound and solid structure, how it's built. Again, I've had some models built out of clay, which is absolutely fine. But you have to keep in mind, hey, clay dries, it hardens, and if it were to tip over anything, it's going to smash into a million pieces. You want your model to have a sound and solid structure. Artwork and the use of color and building supplies. This is crucial to make your project lifelike. I've had a lot of projects built sound and solid, but lacked artwork. Do not be afraid to use color, to use imagery here. We want to make these things look as great as possible. The next thing, of course, is the working 3D model, as we went over earlier. Does the lights work? Do you have detailed statues? Do you have a removable roof, running water? Those things that we mentioned just a little bit earlier. Now, the other thing that is crucial to this project is neatness. You have 6 months to pull this project off. There's no reason that it should look like that you slap things together over the course of a 3-day prior to this project being due. Especially true for the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. When you get a structure, I've seen kids just throw a lot of flowers and greenery in there and no rhyme or reason to where they put these, and it looked really, really messy. So try to avoid that at really all cost. All right, switching back to the next thing besides the model, what you need. The next thing that you need are blueprints in a 3-ring binder. All right, of scale using math and color of your wonder or your horse, one showing a view from the top. So you're going to have to give me a blueprint like you're looking down at your model or horse. What does it look like if you have a drone and you're looking down at it? Also, you would need a side view of your wonder, what it would look like if you were standing looking at it face to face. Again, we'll venture over to the rubric here. The blueprints of the diagram of your 3D model. It's really neat, and there's that term neatness again, if you use graph or computer design on your model and scale. You can use that. You don't have to. You can draw this out. But when it comes to neatness, graph and computer designs are really number one there. Again, you need a top view of your model with details and scale. And what I mean by that is if I'm looking down at it, how far across, and this could be in inches, how far across does your model measure? How far across lengthwise and so forth. All right. Also, the side view, same thing, using math and scale. What does that look like from the side? And use artwork and color. Don't make this bland. Make this vibrant. Use imagery. Use these colors here. All right. All of this is part of your grade. The next thing that we'll talk about is a photo journal of your entire project from start to finish. Since all of this project is done out of the classroom over a 6-month period, one way that I can easily glimpse into the whole process of your project is through a photo journal. And every time you work on it as an individual, you need pictures of you working on it. If you work on it as a group, you need to make sure that all group members, again, all group members are in this pictures of you, of your group members working on this project from start to finish. This allows me to know that you built this project from scratch. You didn't buy a model. You didn't slap things together. It's a whole process of you building it from scratch to the complete project at the end. Photos from start to finish of your model shows the complete building process, roughly 30 to 40 to 50 or more photos. And each of these photos captions. That means that every picture that you put in this photo journal, you need to have a caption at the bottom. And it tells me what you were doing in this picture. Because, quite frankly, I don't know sometimes what people are doing in pictures all the time. Captions will help. And again, when you're making this photo journal, neatness and organization are a top priority here. Okay? So the whole process from start to finish, you can have more than 50 photos, no less than probably 30. Okay? So the whole gambit of your project captured in a photo journal. The next thing that you need is a 4-page typed paper. And there's 2 parts to this paper here. You're going to be writing about the actual 7 wonder of the ancient world that you chose or the Trojan horse. And you're going to tell me all these things about it. Details of the construction, the real one. Where it was located, the real one. When it was built, the real one. Who built it or who had it built, the real one. Why was it built? This is the real wonder or Trojan horse. What was it made out of? The real thing. How big was the real thing? How long did it exist or does it still exist? And finally, what makes it a wonder? Or if you're doing the Trojan horse, why was the Trojan horse built? What was it used for? All of those things pertain to the actual wonder or Trojan horse. The next part of your 4-page paper is about, well, your 3D model here. You're supposed to describe your display. What is your model made out of? Because I may, quite frankly, not know. What problems did you encounter? When you build these things, trust me, you're going to run into some problems. What problems did you encounter? Why did you pick this wonder or Trojan horse to do? Were you just curious about it? Did you pick it and think, oh, geez, I made a mistake? What? And finally, how long did it take you to make your model? Was it over the course of 3 months? Did it take you just 3 weeks because you did everything boom, boom, boom? All of those things matter. That is your 4-page typed paper, use 12-point font. Finally, the last part is presentations. Now, in February, all the projects are going to be due on the same day, although presentations will go on for 3 days. So if you're giving your presentation on the third day, everything that we just mentioned above is still due on the first day when everybody else is as well. A minimum of a 5-minute presentation. Trust me, all the things you need to talk about above, minimum 5 minutes won't be a problem. In fact, most group presentations or individual presentations have lasted a minimum of 10 minutes in the past. Speaking of individuals or group members, if you're working as an individual, you will need to give your presentation by yourself. If that is something that scares you, before we get started on this project, you may want to consider being in a group. Now, even if you're in a group or partnership, all members of your group or partner, you all must have speaking parts and do well in the presentation. For this, let's do Google Slides. You will need to create a Google Slides. You'll need to use your photo journal, the photos you took from start to finish, your blueprints, pictures of the actual wonder and the Trojan horse, discussion of the model, and discussion of the one that you created and the real one. So all of those things. You will need to talk about details of the construction of your model compared to the actual wonder or horse that you ended up doing. Explain why your wonder was a wonder or why the Trojan horse was built or what it was used for. And look at this one, creativity of your presentation, not just monotone, not just stating the facts. I want you to be creative. If you want to create a skit to go for your presentation, please do so. I want to be entertained. I want your classmates to be entertained, but I want this to be factual and I want this to be fun and I don't want this to be overwhelming for you. So if we can get some giggles and laughs, I think that would break the ice. But I do not want you to stand up there and just read your essay. I want you to tell me about it, but I don't want you to read your essay. I want you to tell me about all the things mentioned here. And really, the last thing is overall presentation. How did everything go? How did everything be put together by you? So there is your project. 1,600 points possible. You have the model, the blueprints, the photo journals, the 4-page type paper, and the presentation. 5 working things to be turned in a 6-month period. You get started in September, and then again, you have until the month of February when all of this comes due. Now, some other things that we will quickly talk about. Things that you cannot use. No Legos, no food parts, no dolls, no action figures, no already put together models, anything from Hobby Lobby that may be easily put together. Money. I do not want you to spend a lot of money, if any money. A lot of these projects in the past have been built with household items that can be found in the garage or the house. Uh, as group leaders, one thing that group leaders cannot do is you cannot say everybody is going to donate $30 to this project. It's not how it works. Group leaders have no say so when it comes to money. If you guys want to get together and say, hey, can we donate $10 to $20 for building supplies? I have no problem with that. I really don't want you to spend any money if possible. But group leaders, you cannot go out and spend, say, $200 and then go back to your group and say, hey, everybody owes me like $45. Do not do that. Okay. That's one thing that is a big no-no. But reasonable size, like I said earlier, they have to fit through doors, have to ride in cars to school. Reasonable size. You can use popsicle sticks, paper mache, cardboard, styrofoam, paints, markers. I'd be a little bit leery about clay because that tends to dry out, harden, and if it's dropped, it's easily going to be cracked. Okay. So let's look at some great examples and then let's look at not so good examples. All right. So this is relatively large, but it's a good representation of the Trojan horse. I think this was made out of paper mache to a degree and chicken wire, actually. I believe this is tried to be a hanging gardens, but it's a little sloppily put together. Not a lot of neatness. You have to have neatness in your project, and it looks like it's put together a little hastily. So some of these are good, some of these are not so good. This is a pretty good interpretation of the Lighthouse of Alexandria, well put together. Looks like it's sturdy and strong. This is a little bit shaky, not quite level there, a little missed. Labeled there, I guess, on the windows, not all organized. It could have been a little bit better done. Your project has to look like it. This looks really nothing like the Lighthouse of Alexandria. This would probably be a poor project example. Again, when you're doing the lighthouse, I don't think you're going to find many historical records where it kind of has a bucket look to it, although I kind of know why they did this, but again, no real bucket look, and it could have been a little bit neater. This looks like it's put together very quickly and just kind of, I don't remember vines going around the Lighthouse of Alexandria. The windows are not filled in. This is probably a poor example. This is really well done. I don't know if this is an accurate interpretation of the Lighthouse of Alexandria here, but as far as put together and neatness, it's number one. There's another view from the side on this one. This looks more like a ziggurat than a pyramid. I'd be careful on that. This is a well done, well put together Lighthouse of Alexandria. This is a Trojan horse. It has working wheels, ladder there. Little hastily in the artwork department. Remember, artwork is definitely a requirement. Now, this is a picture of the statue of Zeus. It needs to be in the temple of Zeus. You can say it's probably done with clay. Not bad. If you're going to do the Colossus of Rhodes, the statue of Zeus, or even the mausoleum Halicarnassus, I'll probably go a little bit grading lightly on you because these three seem to be the more difficult ones to produce. Little hastily put together, I would say. The hanging gardens, this is what I was talking about earlier. You have a structure and then you just throw all the stuff on it. Not really neatness and artwork when you look at this. And that's some of the requirements that we have for this project, neatness and artwork. Again, neatness, the sound and structure may be there, but artwork and neatness is not terrible, not great. This is the mausoleum. Make sure if you're doing artwork that you use a good color scheme because I don't think that's what the mausoleum of Halicarnassus actually looked like. I'm going to kind of skim through this. This is not a bad example if you do a whole layout of pyramids that you can see the tomb not very well, but the mummifications tomb in there makes it a working model. Again, another mausoleum of Halicarnassus there. This is just last minute put together. Let's stick a lamp and build it and put toothpicks around it. Don't do this. Not a bad interpretation of the lighthouse. I don't know about the flag there. I think they had a statue of Zeus or Poseidon, I should say, on the top. And I'm just going to kind of go through some of these. Not a bad interpretation of the lighthouse. Looks like, if I'm not mistaken, this looks like the Temple of Zeus with the statue of Zeus inside. Not a working example. No lights for this lighthouse. Statue of Zeus there. Colossus of Rhodes. But in our case, remember, he has to be standing across the bay there. This is a pretty good Temple of Artemis. Not a great interpretation of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. This looks like something from Star Wars. Not really a great interpretation. A shoebox. some toilet paper holders, and a water bottle. 6 months, sloppily put together, no artwork. I don't see if it has working wheels, so there's a little ladder hanging down there. Not bad for the Lighthouse of Alexandria. I believe this is another statue of Zeus there, the Temple of Artemis again. Don't have a horse with two heads. Trojan horse didn't have two heads. So this is not a bad example here of the Colossus of Rhodes. But again, this was made out of clay. And I can tell you that before it was said and done, just like the real thing, supposedly, it broke at the ankles there. So you got to be careful your sound and solid structure. All right, we're going to say if you need to look at any more examples in your Schoology folder, you have these, and there are links here in blue that you can click on to view more presentations. Again, this is the Seven Wonders of the Ancient World / the Trojan Horse Project. It's assigned in September, and it will be due in the month of February. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, let me know in class or simply email me. Until next time, and good luck on these projects, I'm Coach Hughes.